Kendrick Perkins is on TV, and I know Jerry never misses a moment of Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
Jerry, happy Friday. How are you today, sir?
I'm just fine, and actually, you're right. I would rather take a sharp stick in the eye than to watch Kendrick, but that's just another issue. But I basically have been focused on the Open until about 40 minutes ago. Then I could, focus in on you guys and get some good information.
Appreciate
about
that.
About the Portland Trailblazers and Miami Heat, and all that drama.
Do you? That trade's probably going to happen, right? It's hard to imagine at this point if Portland wanted Dame, wouldn't they just say we're not trading him and tell him, sorry, we're not going to trade you?
Well, I guess my first thought is, if I'm Portland, what in the world could I get from Miami? Now, in my mind, they've got 4 guys who have any value in the league, and that is Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Caleb Martin. Now, varying degrees, of course.
Yeah. So,
in other words, Miami's not going to trade Butler or Bam Adebayo. So, the answer in my mind, if I'm Portland, if what I can get is some combination of Tyler Hero or Caleb Martin and some picks, why would you do that? Lillard's, and then conversely, if you're Miami, if in fact you've got to give up, what you wouldn't give up Butler, Bam Adebayo. So I'm not sure there's a deal there. I'll be honest with you. I really think what's going on is that probably Portland has given his agent, Aaron Goodwin, a chance to probably find out around the league just what the value is. And it may be they have found that, hey, as great as Lillard is, he's a smaller, older, great point guard who is smaller and older and has a big contract. So there's value there, but it may not be what the average fan thinks it is.
Do you miss working with agents as much as you used to, Jerry?
Oh, it's just a joy. Just a joy.
It's got to be the best.
I always say there was 1 or 2 I really liked a lot. And of course, the main reason they didn't have any of their players.
Always makes it easier that way.
Yeah.
Jerry, what is the off season like for coaches during this time? Like, we always see players are in the gym working out, working on their game. What is it that coaches are doing? Is this vacation time? Is this like time to grind film? What are they doing right now?
Well, it should be vacation time.
Good.
Really, August, and that goes for players too. If I really think this, and I think most of them do really try to take off, time in August and early September, because, they are on about a 10 month, 11 month grind. And at some point, you've got to give your body a chance to recuperate a little bit.
Right.
So, and for coaches, really their minds, there's nothing whole lot they can learn at this time of the year. And, when you get back into early September, you can start focusing on what you want to do. It's not nuclear science,
right.
So, I know coaches, we all like to make people believe that, but, so anyway, this is from an NBA standpoint, this is the best of times.
Jerry Reynolds, of course, the great Kings icon, our guest here. I want to ask you, I know it's not a major move, but it does apparently address the Kings' defensive issues. What was your reaction to the signing of Nerlens Noel?
Well, my first reaction would be totally different than everybody else's, I think, because anytime I think of Nerlens Noel, and I think of Sam Hinkie and the process in Philadelphia, and when they traded a young, proven all-star point guard in Drew Holiday for the rights to draft him. And I always said, if they hadn't did that, Hinkie might still be there.
Yeah.
And the process actually might have worked. but anyway, and then of course I think Nerlens, in all fairness, he can protect the basket pretty well. He's from my watching him over the years, very unselfish player. Can make a shot a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of difference between he and Alex Lynn. Alex is probably a more physical player. They both can make a perimeter shot occasionally, and I think that Nerlens is more athletic, quicker off his feet. So my guess is it's just a case of Coach Brown has another way to play depending on the opponent and the time of the game.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, so you listed the other centers on the team. It seems like, I mean, especially with Sasha coming over and Chris Duarte potentially being a backup three, seems like Trey Lyles' minutes are probably going to come a majority at that backup center spot. Do you think he has the skill set and the capability to kind of switch his game back to that of being more of a somebody who's, he's got to have to rebound more, someone who's going to have to play a good amount of their minutes at center, where last year he was playing more of a stretch four?
Yeah, to answer your question, I do. I mean, they, when they play small ball, and they can, I'm not saying they would all the time. I mean, Trey's really good in that role. And I would say this about Trey, most of the year, the Kings played Metu as a backup five. And Trey, quite honestly, is better than Metu in every phase.
I agree.
So I guess what I'm saying is there's not a real downside. I mean, I think Trey's an awfully good player, but you're right. I think at times if they want to play small ball, and I think Coach Brown will do that. I'd be surprised if he doesn't, because with this team and getting Vesnikov and Duarte, I think, they probably haven't gotten a lot better defensively, but I think they've gotten better offensively. And I just kind of think it's, with Coach Brown, it's like maybe they couldn't get exactly what they wanted. So they just pushed all the chips in the middle and let's go get 140 a game.
Sometimes you got to lean into what you're good at.
Yeah. Jerry.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see a thing wrong with that. and get better at it.
We wanted to ask you.
Why would you want to make Mike Tyson a boxer?
Exactly. He's just there to knock people out.
Wanted to circle back and ask you about something. I know we talked about this week, and you and I exchanged texts on Reggie Theus in the old days of the first Arco, pheasant hunting with a bow and arrow in the fields outside of Arco 1. It's just, to think how far we've all come since those days. And we were just thinking about it. Did Reggie did he leave the bow and arrow in the car, or did he take it into the locker room, or did other players go with him? How do you remember all that working?
Well, here's what I would remember. Now, of course, that was when we originally were playing at the Little Arco, or the Little Arena first, which I think was Arco 1, and then the Arco 2, which, for those that didn't remember Arco 1, the little one. But anyway, Reggie would bring his hunting gear except for the bow. I mean, believe it or not, we wouldn't really, let him bring hunting.
Couldn't get through the metal detector.
Yeah, but I mean, I was a little sensitive to that in particular. I mean, you never know feel like to say if Reg couldn't get enough shots or something. Might have been me instead of a pheasant.
Exactly.
So, but he'd be excited, and we'd have regular practices. But Reg was a good hunter. Obviously very talented in many things, and that area over there where the big Arco was for years and years, and at that time, I mean, they had sheep there at times. I mean, it's very safe for hunting, and so Reg wasn't the only one. And I know I heard Chris talking about Brad Miller. Yeah, he's the only other guy I can think of. Of course, we didn't have Reg and Brad together, but they would have been inseparable hunting buddies.
Oh, gosh. I would pay to watch that show. Let's let's send them out now.
That would be a big time viewing. And like I say, both skilled, and if they could have made as much money hunting and fishing as they did playing basketball, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's the real passion. While we're down memory lane, I really wanted to ask you, I was watching a clip from an NBA TV show called Open Court, where, it's a bunch of, the TNT guys talking about their playing days. Kenny Smith shared a story about Bill Russell when he was coached by him here in Sacramento. And told some funny stories about Bill falling asleep at practice and, with the newspaper in his hand and saying, if you guys weren't so boring, maybe I wouldn't go to sleep. And, on the bus saying, hey, Kenny, sit next to me because he's a loser. He's a loser. He's a loser. Can you just talk about how fun it was and just Bill's spirit being around him? Obviously, the team wasn't incredibly successful, but Bill being one of the greatest figures of all time, just what was it like to be in his presence? And, his laugh is something that's talked about so much. Just how great was his spirit?
Well, it was, I just love being around him. I mean, it took me a long time to get to know him. He's a unique and eccentric man, no question about it, and at times probably with some of the players, he wouldn't have been warm and fuzzy, as it
Didn't
were.
seem like it.
But yeah, of course, I always remember, and Kenny and I talked about this a little bit later on when I took over for Bill, is that Bill wouldn't let Kenny shoot deep shots. He had that little strange looking shots,
Yeah.
and he'd say, Kenny, no, you got to be inside the free throw line to shoot that shot. So when I became coach, he said, will you let me shoot? I said, yeah, you shoot as much as you want to, as long as you hit most of them.
Yeah.
And we kind of simplified it for Kenny. And, but that was, that was really true. I mean, it wasn't, and Bill was certainly tried to, get in Kenny's head and make sure he's heading the right direction. And, I always say, I thought he did an excellent job there. I mean, Kenny was, fun for me to coach. I always say, I told Kenny once on one of his shows that I could always remember when I was coaching him, he'd play 40 minutes a game, and then if I take him out, he'd get mad at me.
It's about those 8 minutes he didn't play. That's why.
Yeah, I finally, it was about 4 or 5 days in a row that happened, and I finally said, Kenny, what the hell's going on? You're mad at me for taking you out. You're playing more than anybody else. And he said, oh yeah, I never thought about that. And I said, you're not going to play 48.
Yeah.
But I mean, I appreciated that. I mean, I think that's why Kenny found a way to be good.
Right.
He was just in the process of being good, and he had the competitive spirit. And basically, which I always tell people, most players don't really want to come out of games. They will, but they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Jerry, we appreciate it very much. Incredible stories. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to come on and confuse you guys and to make, whatever people are tuning in now, come on back. It's safe now.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
Jerry's
All
an
right,
attraction.
guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Come
we'll
on.
see
Don't
ya.
sell
I know.
yourself short.
I know.
Come on. Jerry's a main attraction.
Truly
Come
one
on.
of a
This
kind.
guy's too humble.
Yeah, it definitely. Speaking of the competitive spirit, ready for some Factor Fantasy?
Oh, absolutely.
You've been beating me like a drum in this all week
I'm
long.
telling you,
Not
man.
today, mister.
I just had to lose once to light my competitive spirit. Now it's over for me.
Factor Fantasy, the pretty great debate. Next year, Whitey Watkins, Sactown Sports.